All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I have the distinct pleasure of hanging out here with Roland from the Great Rebellion, the guys that I've interviewed before about their fantastic game, The Great Rebellion, and Frank, who is the writer and one of the members of the team behind this game that we're going to be looking at today, Ardenfall, which it takes inspiration from old school sort of first-person RPGs like
Your
Morrowind.
travels have brought you to the
And yeah, this, I mean, it looks great. And hello, guys. Welcome to the show.
Garakai.
Hello.
This town is a
Thanks for having me.
all of which
Yeah.
have been infighting
And
for years.
Frank, tell us a little bit about
Suckle tribe
the game here.
known for their
What is this
fishing
about?
techniques,
What's the idea?
the
And
hero
why'd you guys make it?
for their hunters.
Alright, so this is Ardenfall. It's a first-person RPG in the style of Morrowind and New Vegas, which are our two biggest
barely
sources
mustering the strength
of inspiration.
before
And the reason for it existing is that Josh, our lead programmer and basically the only programmer and lead designer of the game, he decided he wanted to make something like this because nobody else was making it, right? And then Jared, who's our lead writer, he joined into the team because he really likes making open-ended quests with lots of choices. And at some point I joined him too because I like the same stuff, and we have also great level designers. And yeah, we all just really like this style of game, and we noticed that nobody else is really making games in this style anymore, right? And that's why we're making our own.
Yeah. So okay, so like there are people, there are games out that kind of do this. We have Avowed, which recently came out. In what ways do you think, like, what does Avowed not have that this game you're trying to bring in this game?
Right, Avowed is an interesting case because when we released our recent early access announcement trailer, at the end we listed a couple of things that people were looking for in Avowed but didn't get, right? Like we're not trying to shit on any other people's games. Avowed it's good for what it is, but what it is isn't an open-ended RPG that puts player choice and player interactivity at the forefront. We do, right? In Ardenfall, you can use your skills on anything in the world. You can attack any NPC. You can kill everyone and still finish the game, right? You can get an ending. You can choose which factions to join. You can steal whatever you like. And we also don't put too much emphasis on balance, right? We know that in an RPG, towards the end, you're going to be overpowered. You're going to do some really funny, weird shit. And that's cool in an RPG. Our trailer ends with the player using a spell or a potion of jump and then jumping into the air very high. And then in the end he comes down and dies with a splat. That's a reference to that one spell everyone knows from Morrowind, right? And it's fun to break the world like that, right? And we really want to just give the player a lot of tools and then allow them to have fun with these tools.
Yeah, it looks really cool. So basically, you made you're maximizing player choice, and and I assume that there will be like impacts for at least a good chunk of those choices. Like there are downstream effects, and these things don't. Because one thing I noticed about, and look, I'm not trying to shit on modern RPGs or anything either, but I have noticed that there's been as RPGs have become more mainstream, they've become a lot safer. It's like they're making them more accessible so they can get more people to play, but then it seems to lose something. Do you guys understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's generally a bit of a thing with gaming. It has become so mainstream, and things have been targeted towards the lowest common denominator because just the entire that's just how the whole trajectory of gaming over the last 15 years or so, or 20. But for RPGs that are like this deep genre, it's probably the most noticeable because because a lot.
Yeah,
got lost in
that's
that.
right. Like it's no. I wouldn't say that games that are accessible should not exist. Obviously, there are games for all different kinds of people, but there are, I think, like games like RPGs, like strategy games, like things that people really want to get deep into. In one way or another, you could lose something, especially if it's like an established, franchise. So, what are some RPGs, Frank, that you really like? We talked a little bit before the show about a couple of them, but
Yeah.
what are some good examples of like what you want to see again, or something that we should look at and learn from?
Right, so obviously everyone on our team has their own favorites, but we generally agree on the trajectory that we want to go into. And I think Morrowind is one that everyone on the team likes a lot, and New Vegas is a big favorite too, because of the open-endedness of the amount of player choice and how, most quests let you, make a lot of choices, and all the choices have consequences. So you can play through the game like 4 times, and every single time is a little different, because the game actually reacts to what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And for me personally, like my biggest, the RPG that I like the most is Arcanum from 2001. It was made by Troika, like ex-Fallout developers who left after Fallout 1. And Arcanum has really a lot of reactivity to player choices.
I
I
remember
haven't seen.
I remember buying Arcanum back when it came out because I was a huge fan of the original Fallout games, and I heard that the devs have made a new one, and I tried to like the game, but I never got into it. I just stopped playing after some time. I don't know. I just thought it was I don't know. It didn't
What did you
really
think was
work.
missing?
I'm not sure. It was such a long time ago, but it felt like the mechanics were kind of broken.
Oh, they are. They absolutely are.
Yeah, and I just stopped playing after some time because it just, I don't know, I felt it didn't work. Like, I kind of could see what they were going for, and it was a fascinating idea. And it had a great atmosphere and a great soundtrack, if I remember correctly. But, yeah, I don't know. It just didn't work. And it was a bit disappointing after Fallout. But I don't know. Have modders been doing anything with this game? Are there like mods that fix some of the broken mechanics or stuff like that?
Yeah, there are some mods that fix bugs and stuff and broken mechanics, but it's still not balanced, right? There's still stuff like, obviously, the first necromancy spell you can get, Harm, is literally the best spell in the game because you can just spam it and kill anything with it. So there's not much balance, but all the different character types you can play, right? They all feel different. So it excels in what an RPG should do, which is give you rather different experiences based on both your build choices and the choices to make a quest.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and the term RPG has also been used in kind of like questionable ways often in the recent years. Like everything that has like some stats go up is an RPG,
Yeah.
and people have really, it has been very muddied down with an RPG. Is like what you said exactly. It's player choice and consequences, and it's a little bit different every time. And yeah, that's what makes an RPG. I've just recently been replaying because we were talking about Troika. I've been replaying the Vampire Bloodlines game, and I mean it's a relatively linear game. It's not open world or anything, but it definitely would qualify for me as an RPG because it's so different every time you play through it, and it makes a huge difference what character you play and such. So yeah.
I was just gonna ask what. Yeah, I think you're right. I think the word or the term RPG is used really broadly. It could be like anything from just like getting stronger as you play. So like what do you think like really makes an RPG? Like some people have argued that because you are playing the role of something, it is a role playing game. Like no matter what.
That's every game ever.
I know. Yeah, right, exactly. So what do you think it means to play an RPG? Because I know it comes from
Yeah.
like old tabletop pen and paper and dice games where you use those to, use the paper and the math and stuff on your character sheet to determine what you can do, but you're also engaging in some sort of cooperative improv with the people at the table and the game master. So, but that's in the pen and paper world. So how does that, like, what do you think an RPG is in video game terms? And I think there are specific, characteristics. So I wonder what you guys think.
For me, that's a very historical question, right? Because you have to look at how RPG developed. If you just say, oh, it's role-playing game, so any game where you play a role qualifies, that's stupid. That just means, in Doom you play the role of Doom guy, but nobody would call Doom an RPG. It's really about D&D, right? It's the thing that on the tabletop scene coined the term role-playing game. And then in the 80s, developers started making computer versions of the dungeon crawling aspect of D&D. And what the role-playing in that means is that you can create a character or a party of characters who have different classes, who have different attributes, and those classes and attributes determine what that character can do in gameplay. Right, like the wizard can cast spells, the cleric can heal, the fighter is good at using swords. So, depending on how you build your character, that determines your playstyle.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's really important in an RPG is that the choices you make as a player in what you do with that character actually have an important impact on how you play the game. If that's not given, then it's not a real RPG. If it's just number go up, that's lacking the impact of the character development.
Yeah, so character development is not just number go up. It's obviously the choices you make, and maybe does that include perhaps like consequences for those choices? Do I hit this person? Do I abandon this person? Right, yeah. Because that's what happens. That's like what separates playing a tabletop game like D&D from a board game like, Monopoly. Like that's the difference, right? Or Parcheesi or chess or whatever. In chess, there's no story. It's just, two armies. But with role playing, you can tell a story, and like you can have the players affect the story with their decisions. So then. So you were talking a little bit about what you took inspiration from. You mentioned the old Fallout and the like Fallout 2, or did we talk about Fallout New Vegas? You said New Vegas.
New Vegas is the one that I think on the team as a whole has the most influence. My personal Fallout would be the original Fallout 1.
The original Fallout?
Yeah, that's my personal favorite of the series.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Because of tone and the first one, because it has a different tone, right? From Fallout 2 onward, they added a lot of silliness, and they kind of missed the point of what the original Fallout was. It's still a good game. Fallout 2 is a good game. New Vegas is a great game. So Fallout 1 is special.
Oh, so the tone of Fallout 1 is different from the other, because the other one I played the third one. That's the only Fallout I ever played. Yeah, I know. That's what my first experience of Fallout is Fallout 3, and everybody's like, that's not Fallout. And just like my first experience with GTA is GTA 4, and they're like, no, that's not GTA. So I'm just really unlucky.
With Fallout, it's really weird because, and I don't know, I always spurg out a little bit when people talk about Fallout. But it's true, in some level, there is really just Fallout 1, and then there is everything else. Nothing has ever managed to really replicate or get the whole tone of the first Fallout game. And I think Fallout New Vegas is probably the second best Fallout game out there, because it's just a great game, gameplay wise, story wise, quest design, consequences, etc. But it also does not hit the tone of the original Fallout, because it already is like it feels completely different. Like you walk around in this like relatively small highly populated area that's full of like kind of like a bit of wacky things that are happening all the time. And that's just not the original Fallout, which is like all about you being alone in this huge, vast area where it takes you weeks to go from one place to another, and it's like really desolate and really grim, actually. So yeah, I think they have never actually captured that again. Yeah.
So
that's mine. 2 cents.
So let's talk a little bit about writing then, because if I remember correctly, the its base says Fallout 2 disrespecters.
No, Fallout 2 is a great game. Okay.
Fallout 2 is a great game, and New Vegas is a great sequel to Fallout 2, but Fallout 1 stands alone.
Yeah. These are really all the 3 Fallout games that are important. Everything else is whatever.
Bethesda is fan fiction.
Yeah.
What was
Bethesda fan fiction. Yeah.
Oh, the rest are fan fiction? Okay.
Fallout 3 and 4, the other fan fiction.
It's Bethesda's fan fiction, yeah. No, yeah.
Well, okay, so let's talk about writing, because Frank, you wrote the story for this. You help write the story for this game.
Yes, I'm one of the writers. We have right now, I think, 4 active writers working on the game, and I did a lot of the word coding, especially for the Sand Elves, and a lot of quest design. All our writers are also quest designers. We put a lot of emphasis on, multiple choices, player choices. Also, like here in the video that's playing right now, right, the gameplay video, here you have a nice little road sign that actually tells you where to go. So initially, when we released the demo, there were absolutely no quest markers at all. You had to navigate by sight, right? You look at the world and you navigate by the world. We did eventually add quest markers because there were so many streamers playing the demo that complained that the game isn't telling them where to go and they don't know where to go. They ignored the road sign, they ignored the road, they just wandered off into the wilderness and were surprised they got lost. They didn't read the instructions that people told them, so we sort of had to add quest markers, but I've always been adamant about making the game playable without them.
Yeah, that's a very.
I
agree
we have to
I think it takes away so much from you craft this game world, and in the end all you do is follow the marker. I played all these old school games back in the day, the top-down RPGs, and then I actually had a phase where I didn't play many RPGs. And then at some point I started playing them again, and it's questionable whether that's actually an RPG, but I started playing Cyberpunk, and for me it was such an almost jarring, even though I kind of liked the game, but it was such a jarring experience that I suddenly just I have a feeling I'm just following the marker. That's all of the other stuff is just window dressing. What you really do is you follow the marker and you press F to progress the game. So I don't know. I would love to have more games that just let me navigate the world and craft the world in such a way that I can actually find my way around it without that stuff. But I understand that's difficult.
Yeah, we're doing that for Ardenfall. Like when NPCs get you quests, the directions are actually highlighted, so we can actually see, that's where they want me to go. And then the journal entry also gives you repeats the directions, so you can turn off markers. And in the current dev build, we call the mode without markers Frank mode, because I was so adamant about allowing you to turn them off. So you can turn them off, and then you navigate the world by things people tell you and by just looking at your surroundings, right?
That's great, yeah.
I think that's where that's where good art direction comes in, because like you use the art or the graphics in the world to draw people's attention. So if you have like they're in a forest, but there's light coming from a certain direction, you don't have a marker, people will say, well, I want to see what's over there. Or maybe there's like a trail of blood or something else, something visual that doesn't say this is a marker, but it just gets the player's attention. There was this game on the PlayStation, I don't remember which one. It was called Journey. Have you guys ever heard of it? It's like a little artsy game. and
Mhm.
all
I know
they
about
don't they don't tell you anything. They just show like a mountain in the distance with light, and everybody just goes towards it. And so the game like uses environmental storytelling to get people to move from one place to another. I think that people today, modern like gamers or whatever, they're so used to having their handheld that through games that they get, they don't know what to do, they get distracted, they have ADHD, I don't know, but they don't know like that they could just walk around and find stuff, and then that's why they need to be told where to go. It's like,
Yeah, the audience has been kind of like conditioned. That's actually a big part of it.
Yeah, and it all started with Oblivion in 2006, right?
Oblivion?
The sequel to Morrowind. It added quest markers and also these location markers, right? When you walk past a dungeon, your compass has this little symbol of a dungeon nearby. And Oblivion was the one that started it for RPGs, and ever since it has essentially become standard. Yeah, I have a lot of personal beef with that game in particular, because I was very hyped for Oblivion because I was a huge fan of Morrowind. And when Oblivion came out and I played it, just the more I played it, the more I became disappointed with how much it removed from Morrowind. And Oblivion was the one game that turned me from an optimistic teenager at the time into the jaded old fuck I am now. So yeah, thanks Oblivion, I guess.
Thanks, Todd. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So, do you think that they were responding to? Oh, I got a comment here from Recon. It says, "Question for Roland: What is the last great RPG you played? Has it been a while?"
Well, great RPG. I mean, I am currently replaying Fallout New Vegas again, so I don't know. I guess that counts. But the last actually like great RPG I really played. That's probably either Baldur's Gate 2 or Fallout 2 was probably the last one of the old school RPGs that I would consider, great.
Yeah. Gabriel Phelan Lucas in our chat said the presentation of this game that we're looking at, by the way, it's called Ardenfall, and you can download the demo or wishlist it on Steam. I put links in the description. He says it reminds me a bit of Fly Night. Do you guys know what Fly Night is?
I bought Fly Night. Yeah, it's like a one-man project, which is more of a Dark Souls inspired game, and it's rather short. You play as a fly and explore a dungeon. It's a dungeon crawler, and I would say that developer probably had the same reasoning for why he went with a presentation like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the reason we went for this is there are no textures, right? Everything is just flat colored. Although in the most recent build we did add ground textures to make the ground a little more textured, obviously. But this allows for pretty quick and easy creation of assets.
Yeah.
And it's also a striking visual style, right? So you can easily see what's what, and we can easily create more monsters, create more outfits, create more weapons, create more architecture. And in an open world RPG, you need to have a lot of variety. Right? You want to have a big world with lots of different things. You don't just want to explore the same dungeon a dozen times. So with this style, we can create a lot of variety for a game. And there is quite a lot already.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I experienced. One of the reasons why I wasn't super impressed with Fallout 3 was there were sections of the game where there was a lot of the same areas. It's kind of like it all looked the same, like the subway tunnels. It was all very, very samey, and I would get lost just because it all looked the same, and the palette wasn't, it didn't strike me as like, it looked like they took a bunch of like assets and repeated them to create, labyrinthine mazes. But I think that when you feel like you're looking at something that is like where every area feels unique, that leaves a better impression. You mentioned Dark Souls. I'm a huge fan of the Souls series, and they do a really good job of not, first off, they don't have markers. they barely tell you what's going on, you know. Yeah, but they do really good with the visual storytelling, like that gives you a sense of like, oh, I want to head over there because I see that building, or I see that, you know, that, and so you start going that way, and you kind of figure it out as you go. I think a lot of
I think Dark Souls and especially Elden Ring, which won Game of the Year when it came out, right?
Yeah.
I think they are great counterexamples to the idea that a game with little guidance isn't accessible, because Elden Ring specifically became a huge hit. A lot of people played it, and it doesn't even have a quest journal, right? When I played Elden Ring, I actually alt-tapped out of the game a couple times and opened a text document where I took my own notes, what NPCs said to me, because there's no way to record it in the game. Which I think is a little bit excessive. Like, at least, come on, give us an in-game journal.
I remember the old days where real notes. Yeah, you remember that?
I remember that too. It was I think the last time when I really did it was when I played through Ultima 7 as a teenager. I had like a huge
my god, Ultima!
Everything.
Yeah,
I was a big fan of the Ultima games up until Ultima 9, and I loved actually the part where you had to make your own notes. I don't know. I feel that was kind of like part of the game. Draw maps, make notes.
Oh yeah, the grid map drawing was that was cool, to be honest.
But yeah, does this game have anything like that? Are people gonna have to take notes or draw maps, or remember passwords or secrets or whatever?
No, not really. No, if you get told something, then your character remembers it, basically.
Yeah,
I guess people. I guess you probably can't. I don't know. This is probably one of the things you really almost can't do anymore today.
Yeah.
Or maybe you can have like, I don't know, a setting in your game, like a hardcore mode where you have to take all your notes yourself. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you do have a journal that automatically keeps track of things you learn.
Look into it, I guess.
And sometimes your character learns things. You know, you get told the password, then you know the password, things like that. But we have a very, very good scripting. Yes, we do play New Vegas in hardcore mode.
Yes.
We do have a very great quest scripting engine that Josh programmed for us, where we can reference pretty much anything in a quest to have reactions from NPCs. Right? If you were told something, then you know it. You can use it in dialogue. If you have a certain outfit on, we can reference that in the quest system. Like, we can make you wear a disguise or something, right, and have it be recognized. But anything you do in the game can have a reaction from NPCs, and we do have specific dialogue choices for your background. When you create your character, you can choose what were you before, right? Were you a scholar? Were you a bounty hunter? Whatever. And these career paths that your character had before give you unique dialogue choices.
And this game plays sort of like, well, obviously it looks like it plays in real time, but you don't have a problem with turn-based games. It just doesn't seem to be a fit for this type of game, right?
No, it's just not a fit for this type of game, but I do like turn-based games, absolutely.
Yeah. What can you, like, in this game, can you, like, kill anybody? Could you accidentally kill a friendly NPC or hit them or make them hostile and stuff? That's another thing that I noticed that a lot of games don't do anymore, with a few exceptions, because again, it's like they want the experience to be, it's very like curated so that every player gets a similar experience and there isn't that much divergence, right? Like, but games where you can do anything, well, everybody can have a different story to tell, you know?
I wonder if it may also have to do with the fact that just like, you know, games, especially big AAA games, they are so expensive to make, and creating all the assets and everything is so much effort that, you know, you there is much less motivation, or you know, you probably won't put your effort into things that only a small portion of players ever get to experience or something. So, you know, I think this is basically also one of the many things that have been sacrificed for, you know.
Well, if you allow the player to kill everyone, right? Yeah. You really have to design your game around it. You have to design your story around it. Because if you suddenly kill a main quest character in a like AAA game, with a linear story. What are you going to do then?
Mm-hmm.
Right? The thing is, we always have to consider edge cases with our quest design. Like, what do we do if the player kills that character that he's supposed to talk to? Like, how do we end the quest in that case?
Yeah.
Because the player is allowed to do all of that, we also have to consider all of that in every quest, which adds a lot of work to the whole thing. I've been part of the staff team for like 3 years now, and in pretty much every quest we design, there's really a lot of thinking we have to do about all these choices the player can make, or even things the player could accidentally do that could mess with the quest.
Yeah.
And if you're making like a $20 million project that have a 60-hour story, you can't really feasibly allow the player to have
There's
this
like-
much of an impact on the story.
Yes. I think that this is speculation on my part, but I do think that there's a bit of ego that is involved with this too. Because if you have a team of people, even if it's just a few people, and they feel like they've just made like the best story, and they think everybody's gonna love it, and so they want everyone to experience it, then they're gonna try to keep you on rails to experience their story. Not just because they've spent so much money developing it and marketing it, and getting like these expensive Hollywood voice actors to do the voices for the characters, but also because they really think that, this is my story and I want you to experience my story, instead of making the world in such a way that there's enough threads that a story can go in any direction and the player will feel fulfilled. But you see, the problem with that is the writers don't get to feel as gratified by it. They don't get as much out of it. I do think there's some ego, because I think the gaming industry is trying to be Hollywood now. And I know we talked a little bit about this before the show, but they're already doing it. They have, big award shows, and it's all this ceremony. It's just like Hollywood. And so that means that I think there's going to be because Hollywood used to, control essentially all of our stories. Like, they were the only place, or maybe Hollywood I should say show business or the movie industry or whatever. But at that time, watching a movie or consuming a story is like a passive thing. You're just watching it, right? And so they can say whatever they want, and you just have to absorb it. But in a game, the player has choice, so they can affect the story, and that's kind of a problem for people that want to tell a certain story. Which is why I think a lot of these big, AAA companies, they spend a lot of money on their games, like hundreds of millions of dollars, right, on the marketing, and they have a certain story they want to tell, and they don't really want, shots fired. Sort of. I mean, I think it's a good example, because, it's not an RPG, but how many different ways does a Metal Gear game end, or whatever? Like, your choices don't affect that much.
I mean, I think it is. There is a place for linear games that just tell a story, and that's that.
Sure.
That's totally fine, in my opinion. But those aren't RPGs then, or at least not what an RPG should be. If you make an RPG, you have to go that extra mile, and you have to, I guess, swallow your pride or whatever, because that's what the game is about. If you don't want to do that, then make a visual novel, or I don't know, something like that. Yeah,
but I think that's the reason why RPGs are starting to become so watered down now, where they're not even why are we here, right?
Yeah. The thing is for a very long time, I think at least a certain portion of game developers had a bit of a chip on their shoulder, because, as you said, movies, Hollywood was always the big medium that created our stories, and ever since, this goes way back in the 90s or even earlier, that there was this desire, we want to be the new movies, video games are going to be the new thing now and replace movies. And then
do you remember, Roland, you probably remember the FMV craze of the mid.
Yeah, the FMV stuff from the 90s, and it was horrible back then, and it has never really produced, in my opinion, this desire to be like movies has never, because it's never going to be, movies are always going to be better at storytelling, probably precisely because they are not interactive, or at least telling stories in a certain way. You you can't be better at their own game, but at the same time you're throwing away the strengths of what is a game. So I don't think it is a good idea, basically.
Yeah, I think from the writer's perspective, I think the people who want to...
It's true, I actually don't think Dragon Slayer is good.
Dragon Slayer is barely a game, honestly.
Yeah, it's barely a game.
I mean, it's not a game. It's a good.
It's like you have to you just memorize the things.
Yeah.
And nowadays they'll just tell you what to do.
Dragon Slayer and
I
like
mean-
it's QTE. What
I
now?
mean, those FMVs definitely had charm, especially in Command and Conquer ones. There is like, and these FMV, there were these FMV horror games, stuff like Phantasmagoria and what
Night
is it
Trap?
called? Yes, Night Trap and Night Trap. And yes, and there was this really weird game, Harvester or so I think it was called.
Harvester, yeah.
It's a really strange game where you were in this like weird Lynch-inspired town, and there was like weird stuff. But basically, that was a very special time in history, in gaming history, and it had its charm. But yeah.
Shout out to Ignacio making Dying Breed. Well, yeah. So anyway, going back to this, but yeah, I think
Going back to this, yeah, from a writer's perspective, right?
yeah,
I think these writers who don't like it when the player messes with their story have the wrong attitude when it comes to a game. I also write short stories, right? I have several short stories published out there in various indie magazines, and I approach writing a story completely differently to writing for the game, because they are two different things.
Yes.
When you write for a game, you should write with the expectation that the player is going to mess with your stuff, and you're going to take pride in letting the player, in giving the player so many options to mess with, right? That is something to be proud of. That's something that's unique to game writing, especially RPG writing. You make a quest with 5 different endings, and what's not to be proud about that? It's like you've just written 5 stories in one, essentially. And
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
When you're
mindset thing.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, when you're a dungeon master, if we're going back to the tabletop gaming, you have to adapt to what the players are going to do. And if you can do that, and you can, just sort of treat everything that the player does as an opportunity for something more interesting to happen. If you're adaptable, and I think that writing a role-playing game, that's got to be, the most challenging, accounting for that, right? So if you do something that goes against whatever you imagine your main plot. First of all, you shouldn't be married to any idea. So that way you're open to this thing the player does. But I think that if the players do something to mess with what they think you're trying to do, and you already are ahead of them and you have something else planned, they'll be more impressed. They'll be like, wow, I thought that this was going to break the game, but in fact it changed it in this really interesting way, Yeah. And I think that's a testament to the writer. Yeah.
Yeah, when you want to get players to have that experience of they go into the game, they do a thing, and they didn't expect it to be recognized by the game, but then it is. And they, oh, I can do this. Wow, that's cool. Right? We want this sort of interactive experience where the player gets wowed by the abilities he has.
Yes. I remember I was playing Demon Souls for the first time. And there's a guy in the hub world, the Nexus, named Stockpile Thomas, and he holds all of your extra stuff because you have to manage your inventory. You can't carry too many things. And I accidentally hit him. And and he started fighting with me, and I had to kill him, and then he was dead, and I couldn't stock anything for the rest of the game. So I had to just use whatever I had on me and put everything down or sell it. No, I couldn't sell it. There was no selling back then. So
that's also a choice and consequence, right?
Yeah. Generic Jam asks, was RuneScape an inspiration for the art style?
I don't know. Probably not. I would have to ask Josh about that, because he decided on that art style early on, way before I joined the team. And I'm not sure whether RuneScape was.
Okay, I got a controversial question now. This might upset some people. Western RPGs or JRPGs?
Western RPGs, 100%. I could never get into JRPGs, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I have to say exactly the same. I bought Final Fantasy VII for the PlayStation 1 back in the day because everybody was like, "Oh my god, this is like the best game ever." And I put the CD in and I started the game, and then like I got so bored by all the movies that were playing before the game even started.
Yeah,
and,
right.
and then I don't know. I just always hated this whole mechanic that you were just running around and then like completely without any warning. Like
You just
combat
get
would
into
start.
a combat.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
and I don't know the combat system. It's like you can't actually move your characters around. You just kind of stand there and you can select. I found I don't know. I never got into that stuff. So I actually I refunded my Final Fantasy VII and I think I bought Resident Evil for that, which was far better.
Yeah, the JRPG combat style of the Final Fantasies is basically old school 1980s wizardry, except it's drawn out with overly long, unnecessary animations.
Yeah.
It's wizardry but boring.
Okay, so what is because like there are JRPGs that have slightly different systems, but like what's like the fundamental problem with them that you think Western RPGs at least potentially or historically have done better?
Alright, so I don't like JRPGs, but I do think there are worthwhile RPGs from Japan. Like we just mentioned, the From Software
Souls.
games, right?
Yeah, the Souls
Anything
stuff,
they make. I do like so-called FRPGs, strategy RPGs or simulation RPGs, whatever.
Like
It's what the Japanese call those which have actual grid-based, turn-based combat,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Top-down,
I
like
love that
Tactics
stuff.
Ogre. Yeah, Tactics Ogre,
Yeah.
Final Fantasy Tactics. I think those are pretty good. But anything that's called specifically JRPG is usually the Final Fantasy style.
Yeah.
And it's a very ossified genre that doesn't really stray from its formula, right? It's always just, you have a lot of story in which you have absolutely no choices at all. You don't even get dialogue options. Not even like fake dialogue options like you get in the latest Dragon Age, where whatever you say is gonna have the same outcome anyway. Well, in an RPG, you don't even get to make that sort of fake choice. In a JRPG, you just get a cutscene. It's like whenever you talk to an NPC, you are taken out of your character. You don't play that character. You just follow along on the ride, essentially. The only time you actually play is in the combat, and that's too simplistic to really be engaging, for my taste at least. So
Yeah, I
essentially
completely
what you
agree.
have is a movie, it's a movie with grinding. And yeah, I'm not into movies with grinding.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Roland.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. Yeah, there is very little choice in these games, and to be quite honest, I mean, you just also have to like the style. I always thought it was kind of. I was never into the whole Japanese. Like there is some anime that I like, but most of it I find kind of silly and with the big swords and the spiky hair, and that's kind of.
Yeah.
It's kind of dumb. I don't know. I can't get into that. It's silly.
I think you guys are right. I don't consider the Souls games to be JRPGs because they don't have that visual style that JRPGs go for, which is sort of like the anime thing, and it doesn't know if it's fantasy or science fiction. It's kind of like blending a lot of stuff, and it just starts to look like it's Japanese. And you're right. The stories are they might be well written, but they're so linear. So you're just experiencing a story. And then you like level up and get loot along the way.
It's more like an adventure game, yeah, with grinding or something. Is what it reminds me of. I mean,
It's a real mode with
some,
grinding.
I
Like,
actually
real
always
mode.
like those you know, like more like action adventure, you know, stuff like Zelda or something. Or what was the game Landstalker on the Mega Drive? You know, there were a few good ones like that. I kind of like that. But yeah, those were more like
and they always like get into kind of like insane scaling, like you're fighting a god by the end or something.
Yeah.
Like they're, you know, it's I get it. They all have a similar feel, and Western RPGs seem more grounded, and usually like they're taking from something that, you know, comes from folklore, like you know what you're looking at, you know, whether it's medieval, which is usually what it is, or like steampunk or you know what Fallout is, kind of science fiction.
I mean, Ardenfall
like
is pretty alien, right? We're trying to make a very with Ardenfall, we're trying to make a very alien-looking fantasy world, right?
It is, yeah.
But I think when it comes to sources of inspiration, Western RPGs, like historically, right? Western RPGs were developed by guys who played Dungeons and Dragons and wanted to translate that experience to the computer, while JRPGs were made by Japanese developers who played those early Western computer RPGs like Wizardry, and then just iterated on that. And so while the Western developers slowly added more and more pen and paper like things, you know, like dialogues where you get choices, different outcomes for player actions, like you'd have in a pen and paper game. The Japanese don't have that same source. They just kept improving on Wizardry because that was their reference for RPGs, and that's why we got the JRPGs that look like that now. And Western RPGs developed in a more into let's emulate more of the pen and paper experience than just the dungeon crawling.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. So tell us a little bit about this setting then that we're looking at. How does Ardenfall differ from, you know, most RPGs of its type in terms of its world?
Right. So the world building it's very complex. We've done several iterations on it, right? The world has changed a little from the start. But the basic gist is there's this land, Ardenfall, which is being colonized or occupied by the Soviet Empire. And the interesting part about it is we don't have humans. We just have two different races of elves, the Karu elves and the Sand elves. And also a race of dwarves, which are red-skinned guys with tusks, and all the elves have little horns, which you can also, you know, you can customize your horns in character creation. And the whole theme of the setting is about how this land is basically between the old and the new, right? It's between the traditional Karu culture and the occupying Soviet culture. And we have different political factions, different religious factions, and they all have their own worldviews. And you as the player can decide which of these you like the best, and which of these you would like to support. And it is a very, you know, it's an alien fantasy world. They all have their own ideas and ideologies, very inspired by medieval and ancient thought. There's not really any 21st century thought to be found in this game, right? Nothing that comes from the current year real world. It's all supposed to transport you into a different world that doesn't think the way we do, that doesn't have the same problems we do now, but its own problems that derive from how its cultures all interact with each other.
So it's a world outside of, like, completely outside of, like, what we would relate to. Kind of like, I'm not saying it's the same, but I think of the Dark Crystal. You ever, you know, the Dark Crystal, that movie?
I heard about that. It's like an old
it's an old
Jim thing, right?
Yeah, it's with puppets. It's Jim Henson, but there are no humans in it. All of the intelligent animals or creatures are like something else, some kind of, like, you know, vulture people, and there's like elf people and different things, but there are no people. So it's like a completely alien fantasy world. You know, everything is made up. So
I mean, we do still have like relatable aspects, right? They're also they're elves, but they're people, right? They're humanoid. And we also take care to show you things like farms and fisheries, where the food comes from, where the clothes come from, everything, right? We even decided recently that one of the factions is going to have a mint where the Soviet Empire gave them the license to mint gold coins. So you actually know where the currency comes from and things like that. Like everything that exists, you can actually see where it comes from, who makes it.
Well, I just want to say that it looks really cool. You guys got some rain happening right now, and it looks like the map is pretty big too. So yeah, how much of the map are we looking at?
Oh, yeah,
Like,
that's a hard question because we're not finished, right? We're still expanding things. This demo is a portion of the wetlands, which is a higher level area that you'll enter later in the game. We have currently one other big region finished. I'd say that's maybe 20 to 30%.
right now.
This,
Oh, yeah.
this.
This everything
Right
that you see-
now, we're maybe 50% done. Way close into early access.
Yeah.
But there's still going to be a lot more. Yeah.
And so are there weather effects? Like, because it's raining right now, but I don't think it was earlier. So you guys,
We got rain, we got wind, we got fog. So yeah, the weather changes, and at night it really looks cool to be in towns with all the lights and lamps.
And looks like you have a lot. Like basically, you're going for some environmental storytelling. You make the world looks like it's been lived in, or there's history there. Like that cave he was in, he gives you the sense that people dwelled there before. And I think those are all important to immerse players in the story. But Roland, do you have any other questions about the game for this, Frank?
Maybe it has been mentioned before, but how long have you been working on it at this point?
I've been part of the team for 3 years, and I think the game has been going on for like the very beginning was about 7 years ago. So that was when Josh started working with the engine, when he had the idea and just started his first prototype. And it runs in Unity, but it's a completely customized engine that essentially works similarly to how Bethesda's engine works, right, with the cell loading and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty polished and pretty, it looks pretty cool. Like I'm really looking forward to playing it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the page right now, and it's a compliment, but it's saying similar to games you've played, Cyberpunk 2077. So basically, this game is Cyberpunk 2077, guys. But it's an
actual RPG this time.
Yeah, it's an actual RPG, right?
Yeah, if you like open world RPGs, you're going to like Ardenfall a lot.
So would you describe it as a
Cyberpunk? Yeah.
It's well, since this is how you call genres these days, would you say this is a Morrowind like?
In certain aspects, yes. In other aspects, it's probably more of a New Vegas like.
Okay.
Will there be can you get companions?
So that's the two games that really are
definitely
the main
a pretty good pool to draw from. Yeah,
but no companions. We do not have companions implemented.
Not planned or?
Probably not. It would probably be too much work to follow AI.
Oh, is there? That's what I wanted to ask. Is there any like procedural generation planned or something?
No. Okay. It's all handmade.
Okay. Because I remember Daggerfall was very big on the procedural generation, but yeah, I think that was not.
What about
if I remember correctly?
What about horse armor? You gotta have. Is that you gonna charge for horse armor?
we don't want to do any stupid DLC stuff. And Norwegian just said, a piece of advice: never punish the player for being clever. No, we want to reward the player for being clever. Like if you can get to a place in a creative way, you can do it. We have levitation spells and potions. We have a spell that can let you jump a very great distance. So, and we also have some dungeons that are designed with platforming in mind. They can jump around and get to ledges. And if you somehow get to a place we don't intend you to go to, good on you. Have fun there. Right? We don't want to block you from doing anything. Be creative. That's what an RPG should be about.
Yes. Yeah. It looks really great.
Absolutely. It looks fantastic.
That trailer, I think the final parts of that trailer are really what sells a lot of people on it. Where it gets trade, train, earn your place, dive into dungeons for treasures and secrets. gain reputation with unique characters, and then every person charmable. You can just carve charm spells. Every character killable, no exceptions. Every item stealable. If you see it, you can take it. Every rule breakable. Just go ahead and have fun.
Ardenfall, traveler.
That's an RPG.
All right. Well, the game is Ardenfall, guys. Wish listed now if you're interested. Also, check out the demo. Are you guys going to be maybe putting up like so I think you said it was in like that there's a newer version or a better build. Are you guys do a new demo or early access or something like
We're
that?
probably not going to do a new demo, but we are going to release into early access, planned towards the maybe towards the end of the year or just later in 2025. So late 2025 is our goal for the early access release. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Frank. It looks really good. And I think Roland has an announcement really quick.
Yes, I have a very important thing to say, namely, everybody join the game jam, which starts on April 4th.
Yeah, make sure to check it out. I think we're going to have some really great folks there checking out the game jam, and we will announce the theme on April 4th. So thank you, Roland. It's good to see you again, man. I'm glad
same
well and everything.
Thanks.
And,
yeah, I'm really happy we got a chance to talk again.
Yeah,
and hopefully soon again.
Yeah, and thank you for showing off your awesome game, and I hope that you guys do really well. It looks phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. Wish you all the best. It looks great, and it's good that you're making this game because I think everybody it's always a great motivation to make the game that you want to play or that you want to exist that nobody else is making.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Thank you guys, and I do hope we are going to see success and go to win the hearts of our players.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks, guys, for coming. Please follow, like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff.
Thanks for having me.
See you all later.
See you.
Bye. Okay.
Nice.